what has the last month or so been like for you and for your constituents?
Well, it's been busy, it's been scary, it's been disruptive, it's been concerning, all of the above as the COVID virus has taken over our lives and taken our kids away from their friends at school, taken us out of our offices, and it's been challenging.
This has been a new norm for members of Congress. How are you communicating with them? Have you become accustomed to Zoom and Skype and other formats?
I am an expert on conference calls, Zoom, and I think I'm a test case for who's tried the latest new video technology. So yes, but it's been very productive. I've reached leaders in all my counties, constituents, and many, many different industries and listened to their views, what's happening at their kitchen tables, what's happening in their businesses. And frankly, it's been a great way to communicate and get a daily update.
But what restrictions have been in place or have not been in place in Arkansas in terms of people staying at home, schools, businesses, churches, businesses, and restaurants?
Well, Governor Hutchinson, Asa Hutchinson, former member of Congress, who's our governor, has been very prudent and taken a middle course on closing. Things that could encourage the spread of the virus, he's closed. Large gatherings, conventions, church, large dining, bars, things of that nature. But he's allowed a lot of manufacturing and traditional businesses to continue. And I believe that this careful approach will allow him to have an easier job as he goes about reopening the economy in Arkansas during the course of May. Steve, we have about 3,000 cases, and we lost our 50th Arkansan today, which of course we lament.
Tell us about your district and how it's been impacted, the 2nd District of Arkansas.
Right. Well, I represent Little Rock, Arkansas, the capital city of Arkansas, and all the surrounding counties. So it's a metropolitan district with suburbs and some very rural parts as well. And so as the state capital, it's also the healthcare capital. So I've spent a lot of my time working with my hospital executives, listening to their needs on what would happen in the case of a surge for our medical community. Do we have enough personnel? Do we have enough PP&E? So those have all been hot topics for the last 5 weeks.
As you know, there is a debate here in Washington in terms of CARES 2.0, adding another stimulus plan. What's your view, and what's the debate going to be like when you return next week?
Well, I think that's an important question because we've narrowly appropriated $3 trillion. It's $2.7 trillion. That's more than 60% of what we spend in a year in Washington on all federal programs, from national parks to Social Security. And when you add the leverage that the Federal Reserve is working on with the Treasury, it's over $7 trillion. So that's 35% of the total gross output of the United States in 1 year. So from my point of view, I'd like to make sure we assess what programs we've put in place, what money we've already appropriated, and make sure it's doing its job before we jump out and do even more appropriations. So I have a very cautious approach at immediately considering another spending bill.
And I mentioned coming back next week because we learned today from the House Democratic leader Steny Hoyer that you will have your first votes a week from today, beginning at 6:30 Eastern Time. What's the floor of the House going to look like? What's the House of Representatives going to look like in the hearings that are about to begin in about a week?
Well, the plan, and I appreciate Leader Hoyer giving us that much notice, the plan is for committees to meet on staggered terms in bigger rooms where members can social distance. Some of our largest committees have 60 members. So they're going to use bigger rooms for those and spread the members of Congress out so they can continue their committee oversight. And then they'll stagger members on the floors to vote. Last week, when we voted on the most recent CARES 2.0, we had people pass through the House chamber and vote quickly on machines and not stay present. But we were divided into alphabetical groups where no more than 80 members would ever be near the House chamber at one time.
What has your routine been like over the last month or so, you personally?
My routine has been turned into, I feel robotic because of the number of conference calls and video conferences. But I've been getting up very early, earlier than normal, say 5:30, and looking at the news and contacting people who have the hour time difference. We're on Central Time here, so calling Washington and working on projects there, and staying on conference calls and video conferences all day long until probably 9 p.m. or so every day. That's been the routine for the last 5 or 6 weeks.
And one final question, Congressman Hill, because by all accounts, this pandemic is going to be with us. It may dissipate somewhat in the summer, but without a vaccine, we could be back to this in the fall or winter. Do you have a view on remote voting during times of emergency or proxy voting?
Well, I prefer that we do our work in the chamber and use CDC standards for social distancing and do our work that way because of the over 200 years of tradition. I'm not really a fan of remote voting. I'm not sure how that could really be done effectively. And I guess the next best alternative might be proxy voting, but I even have concerns about that. So I hope that we're able to do our work in Washington effectively following the CDC standards if we have another major outbreak later this year.
Congressman French Hill, he represents Arkansas's 2nd Congressional District. Thank you for letting us check in with you on this Monday evening.
Thank you, Steve.